The Plano, Texas shooting. September 10th, 2017. In the quiet suburb of Plano, Texas, a group of friends gathered to watch a Sunday night football game. The host, Meredith Lane, had recently finalized her divorce and wanted to start fresh. She invited close friends, neighbors, and a few coworkers for food, drinks, and football on television. Around 10 people showed up. The evening began peacefully. Laughter, music, and the smell of grilled food filled the backyard. Shortly after 8 p.m., Meredith's ex-husband, Spencer Height, appeared at the front door. Some of the guests knew him, others didn't. He had been married to Meredith for 6 years, but their relationship had fallen apart after financial problems and signs of emotional instability. Meredith had told friends she no longer felt safe around him. When he arrived uninvited, she tried to talk calmly, hoping to avoid a scene. But Spencer was carrying 2 handguns. Within seconds, the night turned into chaos. Guests ran toward the backyard as gunfire erupted inside the house. Police later found evidence showing he methodically moved from room to room, shooting anyone he encountered. One man tried to shield another guest. Both were killed. Music still played in the background when neighbors called 911. Police arrived within minutes. From outside, they could see bodies through the window and heard a single final shot. Spencer turning the gun on himself inside, 9 people were dead, including the shooter. The living room floor was covered in overturned chairs, shattered plates, and spilled drinks. In the aftermath, investigators described it as one of the deadliest mass shootings in Plano's history. Friends said Meredith had been rebuilding her life, taking new classes and planning to move. The football game remained paused on the television screen, frozen at the moment the laughter stopped. The Christchurch balcony collapse. December 4th, 2016. In Christchurch, New Zealand, a 21st birthday celebration drew dozens of guests to a 2-story house near the city center. The host, a university student named Amber, had invited friends, classmates, and family members for what was meant to be a joyful night of dancing and music. As midnight approached, the crowd spilled onto the upstairs balcony. It was a warm summer evening. People leaned on the railing, singing and taking photos. At least 30 people crowded the wooden deck, laughing and swaying to the beat. The old structure creaked under the weight, but no one noticed. Then, without warning, the entire balcony gave way. The sound of splintering wood was followed by screams as dozens of guests fell more than 4 meters onto the concrete below. Emergency services rushed to the scene. 2 people died instantly. More than 20 others were injured, some critically, trapped beneath the collapsed structure. Those upstairs who hadn't fallen could only watch in shock, holding phones with trembling hands as they called for help. Investigators later discovered the balcony had been built decades earlier and had not been properly maintained. Rot and corrosion had weakened the main support beams. The combination of age, moisture, and the heavy load of guests proved fatal. In the following days, the tragedy sparked a national conversation about building safety. Local councils began inspecting old houses used for student parties and rentals. Families of the victims described the surreal contrast between celebration and catastrophe, how one moment they were singing and the next they were surrounded by silence and flashing lights. The young woman whose birthday it was never celebrated another. She later said she couldn't listen to music without remembering the exact rhythm that played as the balcony collapsed. The Santa Barbara Halloween Fire. October 26, 1974. In Isla Vista, California, near the University of California, Santa Barbara, hundreds of students roamed the streets dressed in costumes. Halloween weekend had become a chaotic tradition in the area. That night, a group of students organized a large costume party in the basement of a 3-story house on Sabado Tarde Road. The event drew more than 70 people, far more than the small basement could safely hold. The space was decorated with black plastic sheets and candles. The air was thick with cigarette smoke. Around midnight, someone accidentally knocked over a candle onto a sheet hanging near the stairs. Within seconds, flames spread across the low ceiling. The crowd, packed shoulder to shoulder, panicked. People screamed and pushed toward the narrow stairwell. The single exit quickly became blocked. Thick smoke filled the basement, and the lights went out. Many tried to reach the small windows but couldn't fit through. Firefighters arrived within minutes, but the blaze was already out of control. When they finally gained access, they found 12 people dead from smoke inhalation and burns. Most had been trapped near the stairway, only a few meters from safety. The investigation revealed there had been no working smoke detectors, no fire extinguishers, and only one exit. The decorations, meant to make the basement darker and spookier, had accelerated the fire. Survivors later recalled how the laughter and music turned to coughing and silence in less than 2 minutes. In the aftermath, universities across California banned large basement gatherings and introduced stricter fire regulations for student housing. The Santa Barbara fire became a grim reminder that a few seconds of negligence could turn a celebration into a mass casualty event. Even decades later, survivors who attended that party said the smell of smoke could instantly transport them back to that basement. The heat, the confusion, and the unbearable noise of people trying to escape through a single doorway. The Brisbane Airbnb tragedy. August 21st, 2021. In the quiet suburb of Newstead, Brisbane, a group of teenagers rented a luxury Airbnb apartment to celebrate a friend's birthday. The listing showed a rooftop pool, city views, and space for 8 guests. But by midnight, more than 30 people had arrived. Neighbors reported loud music, shouting, and people hanging over the balcony railing. Among the guests was 19-year-old Liam Thompson, a local apprentice who had joined the group with a few friends. Videos later found on social media showed people dancing and climbing onto the edge of the balcony for photos. Around 2 in the morning, Liam attempted to jump from one balcony to another, a stunt he had seen others do earlier that night. He slipped. Witnesses said he tried to grab the railing but missed, falling 5 floors onto the street below. Police arrived minutes later, finding the party still in chaos. Guests were crying, others were hiding in bedrooms, and some tried to leave before officers entered. Paramedics pronounced Liam dead at the scene. The case quickly spread across Australian news, sparking debates about short-term rental safety and youth parties during pandemic restrictions. The host of the Airbnb claimed he had no idea the guests planned to throw a party. The company later removed the listing and introduced stricter identity verification for bookings made by young renters. Friends described Liam as energetic and kind, someone who loved making people laugh. His parents said he had been saving money for his first car. The tragedy became one more example of how a single careless decision can change everything. In Brisbane, a small memorial of flowers and photos still appears each year near the building's entrance. Locals walk past it without knowing that above, on a balcony once filled with music, a moment of excitement ended a young man's life. The O'Neill House explosion. March 3, 2019. In County Clare, Ireland, a rural house stood on the edge of O'Neill's farmland. That evening, a group of local teenagers gathered there while the owners were away. Someone had found a leftover gas cylinder in the shed and decided to use it for a makeshift heater because the night was cold. The party started around 9. Loud music played from a phone connected to portable speakers. Dozens of empty bottles were scattered on the floor. Around midnight, one of the guests tried to relight a portable stove. A spark ignited leaking gas that had been slowly filling the kitchen. The explosion shattered windows across the property. The roof partially collapsed and flames engulfed the interior. 2 people were killed instantly. Several others, burned and disoriented, managed to crawl outside before the house was fully consumed. Firefighters battled the blaze for hours. By morning, only the outer walls remained standing. Local residents said the explosion could be heard several kilometers away. Investigators confirmed that the gas cylinder had been damaged and improperly stored. What began as a harmless get-together had turned into a deadly inferno. The event devastated the small community schools in the area held memorials, and friends raised money for the survivors. The destroyed home was eventually rebuilt, but locals still avoid passing by at night. One of the survivors later said he could still feel the blast in his ears every time he heard a sudden noise.